Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhushcha Saka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshi Kendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Kanchapi Namami Vityai Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsarishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopaplavarahita Prajnana Ganaha Pratyagarto Brahmaivaham Asmi. Pranams everyone. So in this introduction to Vedanta series, in the last class we saw Ishvara. We did a vichara on Ishvara. And we saw that Ishvara has two components, Brahman and Maya. Brahman is the Chetana Tattva and the Maya is the Achetana Tattva. The Brahman is the non-material consciousness principle and Maya is the material principle. And therefore consciousness, the Brahman, is propertyless, nirguna, and Maya is made of three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. The Brahman is beyond time and space. And because it is beyond time and space, it is not subject to change. Whereas Maya is constantly changing. Brahman cannot be divided. It is nirvikalpa. It cannot undergo any spatial division. Whereas Maya is constantly subject to multiplication and division. But both of them are anadi. And for Maya to exist, it requires Brahman's anugraha. And together it is called as Ishvara. Maya and Brahman together is Ishvara. And we saw for this world, we took the Karana Karya Tattva and we said Karana is the cause, Karya is the effect. Ishvara is the cause of this universe and therefore the effect of this universe also has to be Ishvara, just like a clay is the cause and pot is the effect. There cannot be any pot without clay. If we remove clay from the pot, there is no more pot. Pot is just a name and form for the clay. In the same way, the Jagat is just a name and form of Ishvara. Ishvara is both the material cause as well as the intelligent cause behind the creation. Nimitta Karanam and Upadana Karanam. Nimitta Karanam being intelligent cause, Upadana Karanam material cause. We saw the example of how the spider has been able to create something out of itself. There is no separate material needed. So this is the Drishtantam, the example that is given in the Shastras. But which part of Ishvara is the material cause and which part of Ishvara is the intelligent cause? Maya portion or the Maya, from the standpoint of Maya, Ishvara is the material cause. From the standpoint of Brahman, Ishvara is the intelligent cause. So we saw until this and then we took Srishti. What is Srishti? Basically creation we said is There is nothing that can be created. Everything is only a name and form manifestation. And we saw two terms, Vyakti and Samashti. When we are referring to the microsm, when we are referring to the individual, we call it as Vyakti. When we are referring to the macrosm, the entire creation at the Jagat, at that level, we call it as Samashti. So now we're going to see how the creation happened in the Samashti. And I said there is nothing can be created. It's only a question of manifest versus unmanifest. What is unmanifest? Pramanam agocharam. It is not perceptible or transactable or not available for transaction is unmanifest. And we gave an example, butter in the milk. The milk has butter, but it is not available for transaction. It is not available for perception. So butter in milk is in the unmanifest form. Similarly, this world is right now, what we see the world outside is in the manifest form. But it can also go back to the unmanifest form. In fact, it goes back to the unmanifest form, comes back to manifest. Manifest and unmanifest keep happening. And this is in line with the law of conservation of matter and energy. Whatever science has discovered much later, our Shastras have already clarified them, have already identified that this world, there is no loss of matter or energy at any point of time. The matter is in a causal form. The causal form of the matter for this universe is Maya. We call that as Maya. So now, whatever we had done this in the last two classes, those are very important concepts we need to understand. We need to understand that clearly. That Brahman, Maya, what is a Brahma Maya Sambandham, that there is nothing called creation, there is a Nimitta Upadana Karanam, that the world is not actually suddenly doesn't come out. There is a manifest and unmanifest form. All these concepts are very important and has to be understood clearly. But the class that we are going, the topic that we are going to cover today is more on the creation. This is more for an academic interest. Creation has been discussed in our Shastras in various texts, and each school of thought also have their own understanding of creation. There would be certain common things, there would be certain things that would be different. It doesn't matter. But this creation topic is more for an academic interest. What is more important is the concepts that we have that we have discussed before. So let's go into the stages of manifestation. I don't call it as creation anymore, manifestation. The evolution of the cosmos. And the evolution of cosmos, we can actually present it in two stages. Just like, a plant, a seed becoming a plant, and from a plant becoming a tree. So, in the same way, there are two stages. So, we can present them in two stages. So, Maya is the seed. And then there is from the first stage, Maya gets into another stage called Sukshma Prapancha Abhivyakti, or the causal matter comes to the level of subtle matter. That is the first stage. And this subtle matter is comparable to the text example that I gave as a plant. And then the subtle universe, this subtle matter, the subtle universe then evolves and manifests itself into the gross universe. And the gross universe, which is available for all forms of transaction. And that subtle to gross can be compared to the plant becoming a tree. And if you want to have another example at our own body level, we can say the subtle matter is compared to the mind. So the mind, I'm not able to see, the others are not able to see. It's not available for perception for others. But then the next stage is body. If I talk about body, body is physical, I'm able to perceive, the others are also able to perceive. Body is gross, tangible. Mind is subtle, intangible. In the same way, the universe from Maya comes to the form of a subtle universe, which is not available for transaction, and then it becomes gross. Then it manifests itself into the gross form. And what happens once it becomes to the gross form? After some time, what happens to the whole creation? Again, it collapses. It condenses. It contracts. We talk about in physics, they talk about expanding space and then diminishing space. So this we have already, our Shastras say that this gross will become again subtle, and from the subtle again to the gross. It keeps going back again and again, in and out, out and in. Manifest to unmanifest, unmanifest to manifest. But this universe will be always there. The Jagat will not go. It is there for so many years, and it will be there forever. The difference is, the universe will be there, but the difference is, avastha bedaha. There will be a difference in the avastha, which is sukshma avastha to sthula avastha. But there will be no change in the vastu, not to vastu bedaha. There won't be any change in the underlying matter. So which means, they talk about this black hole then becoming into the universe. Whatever was there in the black hole, the weight of the black hole is the same as the weight of the universe today. Because matter is the same. There is no increase or decrease in matter. There is only change in the condition or the state. From manifest condition to unmanifest condition. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidananeva tatraka paridevana. He basically tells Arjuna, what are you talking about death? Death is nothing but body going out of shape. Nothing is lost, Arjuna. For whom are you crying? Everything goes from avyaktadi to bhutani, vyakta madhyani bharata. So from avyakta it becomes vyakta. So there is nothing to worry about. The problem for us is that we get attached to that shape, to that form, to that name, and we lose sight of the substance behind it. And that is the layout of the cosmology. So this is what the creation is about. Manifest to unmanifest, unmanifest to manifest. Or rather, unmanifest to manifest, manifest to unmanifest. Now we'll go into a little more detail. So the first stage, the causal matter to the subtle matter. So the causal universe, we already saw, is called as Maya. The Maya now has to manifest itself into the subtle universe. And the scriptures point out that the first out of the causal universe, the 5 subtle elements are born first. So the first thing that comes out of the causal universe are the 5 subtle elements, which means these are the Panchabhutas. Panchabhutas, what are the Panchabhutas? Akasha, or the space, Vayu, or the air, Agni, fire, Apaha or Jalam, we can say, that is water, then Prithvi or Bhumi or earth. So don't compare that earth with the planet earth, okay? Prithvi or earth we mean as the solid matter, but again in a subtle form. Right now we are talking about subtle form, which means it is not available for perception. Okay. Even remember that even this Prithvi in the subtle form is not available, is not visible, because it is in subtle form. And again, Jalam means not exactly the water in the subtle form. Okay. Water, any liquid form is considered as Jalam according to our things. So Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jalam and Prithvi, the 5 subtle elements are first born. They come out of Maya. And whatever is in there in Maya, whatever are the features of Maya, obviously they inherit those features, those properties as well, these 5 elements. We saw that whatever is the property of the clay, the pot will also inherit. Whatever is the property of the gold, the jewelry also will inherit. The ring will also inherit. In the same way, whatever is the property of the Maya, the universe will also inherit. Whatever is the property of the cause, the effect will inherit the same property. And if we look into the current universe, what do we generally see? We can see there are 3 common features in the universe, which we see. One is the Jnana Shakti. The first feature is Jnana Shakti, or the knowing faculty, or we can also call the sentiency faculty. Now this faculty, we can see it available in all the living beings, right? They are able to sense the world, they are able to experience the world, they are able to feel, emote, understand, all those things. If the whole world was inert, then nobody will be able to do any transaction. But right now we have these jivas, these individuals, whether it be human beings or animals, they have this sentiency. So there is this Jnana Shakti that we see in the universe. The second thing that we also see in this universe is Kriya Shakti. We see dynamism. There is a capacity to be active. So there is Jnana Shakti, there is Kriya Shakti. Then the third thing is called as Dravya Shakti. And in this feature, what we say is, this is a feature in which both Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti are absent. And when they become absent, it is as good as the inertia. The inertia feature is there. The absence of knowing faculty, the absence of acting faculty. Neither can it act nor can it know. That is called as Dravya Shakti. So Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Dravya Shakti. And technically these three faculties are known by Shastras as Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And we already saw that these three gunas are inherent in Maya. It is already, when we saw Maya to be Trigunatmaka, and we said Sattva, Rajas, Tamas is inherent in Maya, and that is available in the universe that we see as the knowing faculty, the acting faculty, and the inertia. So these three features are seen in cosmos, and therefore they must be in Maya also. And they should be also inherent in the 5 elements also. The intermediary stage is the 5 subtle elements. I said the first stage is where Maya becomes the 5 subtle elements. And the world, then later on to the world. Now the world has got these Dravya, Kriya and Jnana Shakti. Maya also has Tamo, Rajas and Sattva. So which means it is the same 3 gunas that are coming from that stage to this stage. And therefore the intermediary stage, the Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, should also have these 3 properties. And therefore we have got the Sattvika component of space, we have got the Rajasic component of space, and there is also the Tamasic component of space. So the space which is available in the second stage, the Sukshma space, there is a Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Same thing for air, we have Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. For fire, also the same, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Water, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And then finally earth, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So totally we will have 15 items. So the first stage, what happens? From Maya, these 15 elements are created or manifest. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas components of the Pancha Bhutas. This is the first one, first stage. Then what happens from there? Then there is the actual creation, so to speak, it happens. How it happens? First, in the first stage, we can now divide it into 3 stages now from here on, which is basically the Sattva Guna as one generator, the Rajo Guna as one generator, and the Tamo Guna as another generator. So 3 stages. So let's look at the Sattva Guna then. What the scriptures say that out of the subtle matter, subtle elements, all the subtle elements, subtle bodies of the individual are manifested. So from these Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, the Sukshma Sharira of all the individuals come about. We already have seen what are our Sukshma Bhutas for an individual. We know that there are 19 components. What are they? Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Prana, and Mano Buddhi Chittam Ahankara. What the Shastras say now? From these Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, the Sukshma Bhutas, the Sukshma Sharira of all the individuals are manifested. So let's look one by one. So first one is Pancha Jnanendriyas. Knowing faculty. And knowing faculty we have already saw knowing faculty is Jnana Shakti. Jnana Shakti comes out of Sattva Guna. So the Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, having the Sattva component of the Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, is responsible for the manifestation of the Pancha Jnanendriyas. I'll repeat. So the Jnana Shakti is equal to the Sattva Guna. So the Sattva component of the Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, the 5 elements, are responsible for the generation of the 5 sense organs of knowledge. And how does that work? What is the order of generation? Number 1, space. Space is something that you can not see, not feel, not taste, but space can be heard. And therefore, the space is responsible for creation of years. So space, if you want to put a tabular column, space to years. Now the second element, air. Now air can be heard and felt. So because it can be felt, the skin, the Sattva component of air is responsible for skin. Again, the subtle element of skin, not the gross skin that we are talking about yet. We are talking about the Pancha Sukshma Pancha Jnanendriyas. Then fire. Fire you can hear, you can feel, and you can see. And therefore it is responsible for eyes. The next one is water. You can hear water, you can feel water, you can see water, and you can also taste water. And therefore it is responsible for tongue. Then you have finally the earth, Prithvi. You can hear, you can feel, you can see, you can taste, and you can also smell. And therefore it is responsible for nose. So you have ears, skin, eye, tongue, nose. All the 5 subtle organs of knowledge, Pancha Jnanendriyas, that are born out of the 5 elements. So now we got Pancha Jnanendriyas. Okay, what about the Mano, Buddhi, Chittam, Ahankara, the Antakarana, those inner organ, the fourfold mind, the mind, intellect, memory, and the ego faculty. What about that? That is also responsible for knowing. The intellect has to know, the memory has to know, the mind has to know. So that is also comes out of the Sattva component. But for this Sattva component, the Sattva component of not just one element, but it is a combination of all those 5 elements together is responsible for the Antakarana, the mind. So it requires, because you remember the mind has to be behind the ears for you to hear properly. Otherwise you will be in the class but will not be hearing it. I may be seeing something but I may not be noticing it. If for me to notice, the mind has to be behind my eyes. And therefore the mind has to be behind every sense organ. And therefore it requires the Sattva component of all the 5 elements. And therefore the mind is born out of the Sattvika component of all the 5 elements. So this is the first stage, which is using the Sattva Guna as a generator to create Pancha Sukshma Bhut, Jnanendriyas and Mano Buddhi Chittam Ahankara. Now let's look at the Rajoguna as the generator. So Rajas is action, and the Pancha Karmendriyas are the ones that act in our body. They are the organs of knowledge, they are the organs of action. And again, Shastra says, we are talking about the Sukshma Sharira, the Sukshma Pancha Karmendriyas. For that Sukshma element, we need the Sukshma Panchabhutas. The Kriya Shakti component of the Panchabhutas will be responsible for creation of or manifestation of the Pancha Karmendriyas. Again, what is the order? First is space. Space is responsible for speech, Vak. The second one is air. Air is responsible for hands, Pani. Space is responsible for speech. Air is responsible for hands. Fire is responsible for legs. Water or Pada. Vak, Pani, Pada, Payuhu, Upastha. We have seen it. The 5 Karmendriyas. Vak, Pani, Pada, Payuhu and Upastha. So the fourth one is water. Water is responsible for Payuhu, excretion, anus. And then earth, final. Upastha is responsible for the genitals, for procreation. So those 5 Sukshma Bhutas are responsible for the Rajas component on those 5 Panchabhutas are responsible for the Pancha Karmendriyas. Then again, for these Pancha Karmendriyas to act, what is important? The Prana Shakti, the life force. Without this Prana Shakti, these Karmendriyas cannot act. That's why even during the days of fasting, I have told you, we will not, when we have not eaten properly, then we will not be able to speak, will not be able to act properly, will not be able to walk properly. So just as the mind is behind all the organs of knowledge, the Pancha Pranas are behind the organs of action. And the Prana Shakti supports all these Pancha Karmendriyas. And therefore, the Pancha Pranas also should be born out of the Rajasic component of the 5 elements. And again, the space plus air plus fire plus water plus earth put together is responsible for Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. The respiratory system, the evacuation system, the circulatory system, the reversing system, and the digestive system. So, mind is born out of the total 5 elements. Prana is also born out of the total 5 elements, except that for the mind it is the Sattva component, for the Prana it is the Rajas component. Whereas the individual sense organs are all born out of individual Sattva or Rajas component of the 5 elements. So now we have seen the entire Sukshma Sharira is born out of Sattva Guna and Rajo Guna of the 5 subtle elements. So just to recap, what did we see? Maya. From Maya, we see that 5 subtle elements. Those 5 subtle elements have got 3 components to it: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So every element has got a Sattva, Rajas and Tamo component in it. So we have 15 elements that are created, that are manifested out of Maya. From the sattva component of these 5 elements are the pancha jnanendriyas, each element coming out with responsible for one organ. Put together, the sattva elements is responsible for antakarana, which is mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Then you have these 5 elements, which is the rajas component of them, individually responsible for each of the 5 organs of action, karmendriyas. And from put together is responsible for the prana shakti, which is prana, apana, vyana, samana, udhana. So far with me, I believe. Now, what happens to the third? So, sattva guna we have seen, rajo guna we have seen. Now, what is the tamo guna? What does it do? So, that is the final stage of the creation. What happens? From the tamo guna is what we see, the gross, visible and tangible universe. We have utilized the sattva guna component. We have utilized the rajo guna component. Now the tamo guna component. The tamas. From the tamas component of pancha sukshma bhutas, underline the word sukshma, subtle, they get grossified into the pancha sthula bhutas, whatever we see as today as earth, fire, water, is come out of the tamo component of the pancha sukshma bhutas. So the 5 gross elements, they are born out of the manifest of the tamo guna of the 5 subtle elements. And these 5 gross elements, the scriptures point out that until the time the grossification happens, these 5 elements are pure, isolated. That is, the water will not mix with air unless for creation for the mind, probably. Until the time it is all, each of the element is isolated and pure. It is not adulterated. It is not mixed with others. But when it comes to the grossification of these 5 elements in the sthula form, the 5 elements of the sthula form is not isolated or pure. It is a mixture. So, in the sense, the earth has got all the 5 elements in it, the tamo component of all the 5 elements. The water has got the tamo component of all the 5. The fire that we see has got the tamo component of all the 5. Same with the air and space. So every gross element that we see today is a mixture of all the 5 elements, the tamo component of all the 5 elements. And what is the mixture percentages? What is which one is predominant? Of course, predominant one would be the one that is being named after. So gross space will have 50% of it from subtle space. And the other 4 elements will make 1/8 of it, or otherwise 12.5% each. So each of those 4 elements will be 12.5%, put together coming to 50%, and the other 50% will be the main element itself. So for example, the gross space that we see now around us, the space has got 50% of it subtle space, 12.5 water, 12.5 air, 12.5 fire, and 12.5 earth. This kind of a salad mixture that we are seeing, there is a technical term used in Shastras. It is called as Panchikaranam. This term you will see in some places when you read some scriptures. You will see Panchikaranam. Panchikaranam is grossification of the 5 Stula Bhutas, Pancha Stula Bhutas. So similarly, space has got 50% space and 12.5% of the rest. Gross air has 50% air, 12.5% of the rest, and etc. so on and so forth. And once these 5 gross elements are born, then the entire cosmos is created, including our own physical bodies. This is called as Stula Srishti, Stula Abhivyakti, gross creation or gross manifestation. And that's why when we studied the Stula Bhutas, Stula Sharira, we saw that the Stula Sharira is made of these 5 Pancha Bhutas. We saw that. When we studied Sharira Trayam, we saw the Stula Bhutas is also made of Pancha Bhutas. We saw that Pancha Stula Bhutas. And then the Sukshma Shariram, we said it is made of Pancha Sukshma Bhutas. We are just reading the reverse now in terms of the creation. There we saw them as components. Now we are seeing how they are made. So, recap. Maya is the causal universe. From there comes the subtle universe, which is called as Sukshma Abhivyakti. And from there comes the gross universe, which is the Stula Abhivyakti. Thus the entire creation comes out. This creation will last for some time and then will again collapse into Maya. Maya is subtler than subtle. Remember, Maya cannot be seen. It's a subtler than subtle. In fact, we'll say that there is Maya will not give any individual existence to Maya. And what about Brahman? Brahman will be always there. The consciousness is ever present. Consciousness remains. The space, the air, the water, everything is within Maya, within Brahman. Brahman is over and above all these things. So, in the unmanifest condition, we go back to only Maya, and then when the manifesting condition happens, it becomes from Maya to Sukshma, Sukshma to Stula. So this is the Vedic cosmology. So coming back, we say when we are experiencing this world, whatever we see, the earth, fire, water, the bodies, whatever we see is all made of Maya. And what is Maya? Maya is nothing but Ishvara. Brahman and Maya put together is Ishvara. So when I am experiencing this world, whom am I experiencing? I am experiencing Ishvara. When I am experiencing pot, can I say that I am not experiencing clay? It is the same. When I am experiencing a chain or a ring, can I say that I am not experiencing gold? I cannot say. In the same way, when I am experiencing this Jagat, I am experiencing Ishvara. This Jagat is Ishvara Swarupa. This is what we have to understand. Any questions on this? because next topic we will be going on is Jiva Ishvara Aikya. So that will be in terms of understanding what is the relationship between Jiva and Ishvara. As I said, today's topic, in terms of how the elements happen, what is the Panchi Karanam, Sukshma Sharira, Stula Sharira, if you could understand, it's fine. It is not a necessary knowledge for moksha. Okay. For moksha, the other components, the other principles that we discussed until last class, the last two classes, those are important. This is more for an academic interest. Because people always wonder, where did I come from? What was the first? When did the first man come? How we got created? Where is Ishvara? How is Ishvara related to this world? Now, to answer those questions, we discuss these things. Today's topic is subtler. We'll be hearing the recording again to understand more. Questions may come in the next class. Yes, please. Yes. We've seen too many things today in a short time, in terms of, we actually did a recap of Sukshma Sharira, Stula Sharira. We went back to the Sharira Trayam almost, and we revisited the topic and tried to understand them from a creation standpoint as to when and how it happened. So when you do a recap, if you do a recap with the Sharira Trayam, it will be easier to understand. Okay. Any other? Somebody typing? Somebody's typing. Our scriptures are full of creation and destruction of the universe. As in, can you be saying, can you say which part of the scripture says about creation and destruction? Are you talking about the yugas? Every yuga, after every yuga, there is a dissolution. We call it as a dissolution. We don't say creation, destruction. We call them as pralaya, Srishti and pralaya. Srishti and pralaya. Srishti is manifestation. Pralaya is basically going to sleep. Basically dissolution. So we use this term. I think there are two things we are now bringing. One is the destruction of evil, and then the creation and destruction of the universe. Today's topic is about the universe, so we'll first cover the universe thing. Creation and destruction of the universe. We call them as Srishti and Pralaya. Srishti is manifestation. Pralaya is basically dissolution. So dissolution is basically going into the unmanifest form. Srishti is basically from the unmanifest to the manifest form. We already saw when we discussed the Sharira Trayas, this Stula Shariram, this physical body has got a limited existence. It dies after a few times. When we say destruction here, it goes back to its old state, which means it becomes the Pancha Stula Bhutas. When you burn this body, or when you cremate this body, what happens to the body? The water gets merged with the water, the earth gets merged with the earth, the air gets merged with the air, the space gets merged with the space, fire gets merged with the fire. That is considered to be the destruction of the body. The destruction of the body is not the same as the destruction of the universe or Maya. So you can say if the Jagat is destroyed, the universe is destroyed, it is the same as like that body is destroyed. It goes back to its natural state, normal state, which is when the Jagat gets destroyed, it becomes, or it goes back into the Maya. It goes back to the stage of Maya. Then when we say destruction here, it is the name and form that is getting destroyed. The pot is destroyed. The clay remains. The chain is destroyed. The gold remains. In the same way, the universe is destroyed. Maya remains. Okay? Okay. I'll just give a quick introduction of the Jiva Ishvara Aikya. Then we'll see them in detail in the next class. See, Shastra is a pramana. We saw that. Pramana meaning source of knowledge, means of knowledge. Shastras for us means of knowledge. For example, we talk about this Panchikaranam. We talk about this Maya becoming Sukshma Panchabhutas. From Sukshma Bhutas we come Stula Bhutas. Where is the knowledge for, can I perceive, can I see how it has moved from one stage to another? Of course not. I was not even there when it happened. Nobody was there to even record things. This is what Shastra says, and I believe. Because it seems logical and it has been able to give a construct. So Shastras for me is a pramana. It's a source of knowledge. It is a valid means of knowledge. Just like when I see what is in front of me, I see it's a laptop. How do I believe it is a laptop? Because I use my eyes to understand this is a laptop. I believe my eyes now. My pramana is my eyes. My instrument of knowledge are my eyes. In the same way, Shastras are the pramanas for a lot of things, especially in Vedanta, especially when it says you are the Brahman, or it says this Ishvara is Maya plus Brahman, all those things. So Shastra is a pramana. I believe in it or I trust it until I make it my own knowledge, and that trust, implicit trust, is called as Shraddha. So Shastra is called as the Shabda Pramana because it is trying to give you the knowledge through words. So Shastra is a Shabda Pramana. And Shastra has got what are known as Mahavakyas. What is a Mahavakya? Basically, Shastras speak about Jiva Ishvara Sambandham. What is the relationship between Jiva and Ishvara? Shastras talk about that in a few places. These few sentences that are there in various scriptures or various Upanishads are called as Mahavakya. Vakya means sentence, Maha means important. Why it is important? Because important in terms of the benefit that it is going to give me. Because if I understand the sentence properly, these sentences are capable of giving me moksha. It can liberate me. How exactly it can liberate, we'll see that later. But this helps an individual to get moksha. So this Mahavakyas, it talks about Jiva Ishvara Aikya Bodhaka Vakyam. These are the sentences which proclaim the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara. sentences that proclaim that there is no difference between Jiva and Ishvara. It proclaims that both are one. It says Jiva to Ishvara, there is a samanvayam. There is we create an equation and they equate the same. They equate it to say Jiva is equal to Ishvara. This samanvayam, these, for example, I cannot say 9 is equal to 8. It doesn't make sense. So Shastras do not say Jiva and Ishvara are the same in the same manner as 9 is equal to 8. But if I am going to say 4 plus 3 is equal to 5 minus 2, each of the numbers on the left side are different from each of the numbers on the right side. It doesn't make sense. 4, 3, 5, 2, all those things. But then if I do an analysis, 4 plus 3, 4 plus 3 and 9 minus 2, then I am able to see that it is the same. 4 plus 3 is also 7, 9 minus 2 is also 7. So the Mahavakyas typically act in those lines. From the looks of it, it may not be easily available for us. It may not be easily understandable for us. But then we will have to do a samanvayam. We'll have to do a vichara. We'll have to do an understanding on what context, under what context it has been said, in what standpoint it has been said, and then try to understand it, and then we can understand that Jiva and Ishvara are the one and the same. How does this Mahavakyas, what are those Mahavakyas and how do we need to understand them? We'll give an example. We'll see more of that in the next class. Anything else other than this today? Any other question suddenly? Otherwise, we'll again meet in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimayishaha. Gobrahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om Shri Guru Brahma. Hari Om.